All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. As you can see, we have a very special video for you guys today. Today, we're with Jason of Orion Training Group, or Ransom. SWAT father goes by many names. Welcome to the channel, brother.
Hey, what's up, man? It's good to be back, bro. Good to see you again. You look very handsome as well, also.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you. So, for everyone who's not aware of who you are, what you do, you want to just kind of give everybody a real quick background on what you do?
Yeah, man. So my name's Jason Ransom. I am the owner of Ransom Tactical Solutions. It's on Instagram. You got to type out the whole damn thing because of shadow banning and whatnot. But I'm also one of the primary instructors at Orion Training Group. Kind of specialize in CQB and firearms related training. Background is prior Marine, security forces and CQB school, and then got into law enforcement around the year 2000, and got out and around 2021 to help Jared start Orion Training Group or become a full-time instructor with Orion Training Group, and that's where we are, and that's how we got to meet your beautiful face, man.
Yeah. So, yeah, just for everyone who knows, I did a CQB course. What was that? A 3-day small unit CQB course, I think was the official title of that class I did. Yeah, down there in Dilley, Texas. It was 3-day. I think you guys are doing 4-day now, right? Do you still have the 3-day
Yeah,
or?
yeah, we still do a 3-day. We're trying to save the 4-day formats for Dilly because it's such an awesome location. You got to experience it. But
Yeah.
the 3-day class you went to was actually force on force. So we did small workups, small problems, and then opened it up to bigger problems for you and your crew, your team, your teammate of 4 or 5 dudes to be able to go through and basically hit about 20 to 21 separate rooms. And each room has a small problem or micro drill, like we like to refer to it as, a dead space or an adjacent door or even a person. And there's the decisions that you guys have to come and make a decision. Once you make entry to that room, what do I do with that person? And it just becomes a thinking man's evolution of, hey, every room is different. It's not the same layout. So it requires you guys to be independent thinkers, what we call initiative-based tactics. You guys make a decision and figure out what's the best way to answer that particular problem. And
Yeah.
now we've offered that same class basically, but we do a 4-day format. And we like it down at, like I said, down there in Dilley at the ranch. The 4-day format is on the first day. We put basically 8 hours of live fire practice, which includes 2, 3, 4-man entry into a center fed room problem, and then 2 and 3-man into a corner fed room problem. And it's all done live fire on a flat range. We don't do live fire CQB, but we do the live fire CQB techniques on a flat range, so we can articulate barrels, and we can move around targets and target frames to make it simulate a multiple target engagement. And it's just getting people those dry reps on panning while shooting live fire, making entry while shooting live fire. And it's been a very, very well received class, man. That's by far our most popular class. The one that you took is by far our most popular class, but this one is a close second. It's my favorite to teach, just because we get to shoot real guns and do some live fire stuff.
Yeah, I think that if I had to do it all over again, I didn't even know that course was available. For those of you guys who are wondering, I did pay for that course that I took with the Ryan Training Group. I thought it was valuable, I think. And we've done a video previously on the channel. You can go check it out if you want to learn more specifically about what I learned in that course or what to expect in that course. But if I could do it all over again, I would have loved to have that extra day of work on the flat range, because we were just drinking from a fire hose in that 3-day class. It was a ton, especially for me being my first time and ever putting myself in that situation. And you forget how to walk. You start overthinking things like just simple steps. And when there's every level of the spectrum, right? On as far as the guys that were at that class that I attended, there were guys who had been doing it, who attended dozens of OTG classes. We had real sheriffs guys, real law enforcement, military guys in there, and then we had guys like me. There was guys in IT. There was all walks of life, which brings me into my first question, and that is training civilians. So a lot of people on the internet will say, will say civilians shouldn't train CQB specifically, and there's no point in training CQB for civilians. So what is your answer to those people?
I think it's a bunch of BS, mainly because civilians, right? They're responsible gun owners. Let's look at it that way. Responsible gun owners doing responsible things, not silly goose people, but responsible gun owners have the right to defend their home. And last I checked, most people that come to the classes live in a house. Those houses have rooms. Those houses have doorways. Those houses have angles of exposure to be able to get to where their children are across the structure. So just giving them the basic ideas how to be able to work this problem to get to their loved ones across the structure or across their house, to grab their kids and move them to a bedroom and barricade and wait for law enforcement arrival. At no point in time will we ever tell anybody, yeah, go clear your house and try to locate the bad guy. But in the event that you had to do that, right? Because bad guys just don't kick in the front door and wait on you to come meet them. They start moving throughout the structure. So if you have to do that, it might be a good idea to have some relevance for you to be able to maneuver yourself to get to your kids or your loved ones across the other side of the house and then move them to a different position. Um, we also I do a lot of stuff for consultation for like church security teams. And people are in churches, they're armed. And those people want to learn how to do things because in the event that some type of critical incident, you know, active shooter is a very, very popular term right now. Unfortunately, we have to deal with those sorts of things. And in a church setting, those civilians are going to be the first ones to respond and deal with that issue. So giving them some information, giving them some instruction on how to move, maybe direct to threat, because they're not going to be shooting on the other side of church. They're going to go into this bathroom and clear this room and then go into this classroom. They're going to be moving in a rather fast fashion to get to that problem, solve it as quickly as possible. So if I can give them any information or some instruction on how to do that safely, if I can give them something to hold them accountable on the live fire day of presenting the rifle and being accurate with that, or presenting their handgun and being accurate with that, then that's what we do, and they absolutely love it. There was a school I went and did a consultation for down in Florida, and this school is backed by their administration and the government in Florida. That those teachers carry armed. Now they go through medical training. They go through firearms training once a year, medical training once a year. They brought me down to do a CQB package for 2 days on just how to get from room to room and clear hallways and clear rooms and move direct to threat and solve that problem. And we did a lot of that stuff force on force. So it was it's a definitely has a place for it. They just need to know when to apply the tactics that were given to them. At no point in time would I ever tell anybody, you're in Walmart and some stuff pops off, go start clearing aisles and go look for the bad guy. No, I'll be the first to tell you, if I'm in there and I'm with my kids and my family and something pop off, we're getting the hell out. However, different context. I also tell them that, hey, let's say you're in the produce aisle and you're selecting some grapes because you like, eating grapes or bananas. You probably eat the banana for the shape and not the taste. But, you're in there, getting some produce and it pops off right there. Well, you may not have time to run. And if you carry your piece with you and you're a responsible gun owner again, and you have to pull that thing in order to defend yourself or the self-defense of others, because that's in there. And if you put that subject down right then and right there, and they're not causing harm to other people at that point in time, then you've done a great service to your community. You put the bad guy down or the suspect down, and when law enforcement get there, you put that gun back up, like, hey, I'm right here. And we tell them, hey, look, be a good witness, and like, hey, he's over here or she's over here. This is who you're looking for. Don't be hunting for someone, because as law enforcement, when they're responding and they see someone actively moving in that manner, what's that first thought that goes to that cop's head or that sheriff's deputy's head? That's the person I'm looking for. So we tell people, either get out when you can, or if it's imminent, like immediate, do work and then put the gun away and be a good witness. Because I don't want anyone, how many times, I mean, you read about it all the time, bro, especially what you do, is to how many responsible gun owners have done a job and then gotten tuned up, or, for lack of better words, law enforcement has shot them as a result.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And, wearing civilian patches ain't going to work, dude.
No. Especially looking the way I look. You got to be very careful about that. And I talk about that all the time with my friends. It's like, look, am I looking for something to happen near me? Like, hell no. I pray to God I never have to use my gun in self-defense for the rest of my life. But the nature of the world is there's evil out there. There's crazy people out there. And you can get hurt in more ways than one. It could be a knife. It could be a vehicle. It could be anything, right? But the number one priority for me is defend my family, get them out of there. I'm not trying to be a hero. And I'm definitely not trying to be there looking like, like I just came from Lebanon, because that's my background, right? With a rifle in my hand, like looking around for somebody. I'm not trying to be a hero. I don't have this hero complex, but that's really important. And I think what you said, something that I think of when you talk about people who gatekeep this, right? Who say, if you never wore a plate carrier for work, then you don't deserve to, you shouldn't be training. You're just LARPing. Well, my whole opinion on that is like, well, do you endorse responsible gun ownership? Do you believe that civilians and Americans, do you believe in the Second Amendment? Do you believe they have the right to keep and bear arms? And if the answer is yes, then why would you not want somebody trained and proficient so that they don't hurt themselves or someone else on accident? Think about active shooter settings, right? If that really popped off in a church, right? We see it happen in white settlement. That dude was trained, everybody hit the floor, but there's a ton of innocent bodies around there that if you don't know what you're doing, we see it with lady, not to call it lady cops, but get real happy on the trigger finger, adrenaline takes over, and they start NDing into random people, right? Or open space. If you believe in the Second Amendment, then you should believe in people responsibly, effectively being proficient enough to not hurt themselves or others that are not intended targets. And that's where I end. So it's like if you think people shouldn't train or offer services to civilians, then you don't believe in the Second Amendment. And at that point, that's another conversation. And I don't have much, I don't see eye to eye with you on very much
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
So
That's a real sensitive subject that people have that closed minded mentality, that mindset. And I'll be the first one to tell people when they come to a class, they're like, yeah, I want to take this CQB course. Awesome. Cool. Do it. However, you also need to go get medical training. People don't want to do the medical side because it's not sexy. We're not running around with guns and stuff like that. So I tell people, as a responsible gun owner, you're more likely to use some kind of medical intervention than you
yeah,
ever would pulling your handgun out and doing work with it.
yep,
So I impress upon people the importance of getting some medical training, getting some medical knowledge, have a first aid kit in your car, in your home, because you never know when something is going to go awry. Motor vehicle accidents happen all the time, and you're more
yeah,
likely to break out your med kit than you would be to get your pistol out to solve problems. But in the
yeah,
event that you had to pull your pistol to solve problems, at least you have some kind of training and experience as a responsible gun owner to do the
hmm
right thing when the right time presents itself, bro.
yeah. And as freedom-loving Americans, it's not the government's job to make you to mandate responsibility. It's not the government's job to say, hey, if you want to own a gun, you must do XYZ training. It's just what you do, right? I used to ride a motorcycle, very fast motorcycle, and that was I could have died multiple times on that thing. I'm not trying to equate riding a motorcycle to owning a gun, but I had to take it upon myself to limit as much liability as I was on the road, right? And I think it's the same with guns because
Let me ask you
I,
this.
I
Let me
mean,
ask you this. In Louisiana, we have to take a motorcycle riders improvement course. Did you have to take a course?
uh, yes, I did actually. I
Hmm.
did have to take a course, but
So that's
I
crazy that you would have to take a course in order to ride a motorcycle. And you also have to take a course, or I would suggest you take a course to own a gun. And then if you wanted to get better, then you could go take an advanced motorcycles course and just get that better at riding. But then you
yeah,
said, you know what? Motorcycle riding ain't for me, so I'm gonna just do away with that. So, but if you wanted to take an advanced pistol course, an advanced rifle course, why shouldn't you be able to do that shit too? I mean,
yeah,
like
I
you
know, I
said,
agree. But are you saying that I'm sorry, might have misunderstood you, and I don't want to put words in your mouth. But are you saying that you believe that people should have to take a course to own a gun?
no, I think that they should get education.
Yes,
In
but that's the
Louisiana,
that's the you don't have
yeah,
to.
yeah. In Louisiana, you no longer have to take a course in order to concealed carry. However, I stress people, hey, it might be a good idea for you to go learn where you can and can't
Yeah.
carry a gun. It might be a good idea for you to go and learn good ways to carry a gun, like and be proficient with whatever gun that you want to carry. Because a lot of people will get some hand-me-down 22 revolver and be like, bro, you don't want to carry that concealed. You go get something
hmm
reliable.
Yeah.
Go get some education. It can't hurt anything. It's only going to just make you better. Um,
100%. I'm a huge advocate of that. Where I think we agree, I think that it's not the government's place to tell you to do that, right?
that's a
So
fact.
because you do have to take a motorcycle class in order to get a motorcycle license in most states,
Yep.
I think all states, but I don't think you should have to take a class. You should 100%. That again, that's part of being a responsible individual and
Right.
understanding your shortcomings, right? Before I ever my first, I mean, I'll be the first to admit it, and I think most gun owners start this way. You unless you came from the military law enforcement background, but I started out with a pistol and I went to the range once or twice a year, shot the pistol. I mean, I never carried it with me either for, to that point, but I didn't see the importance of training until I really got into being owning more guns and getting more into the community, right? When I was a
Yep.
very average gun owner, like I feel like the majority of, you look at how many gun owners are there in America, over 125 million gun owners, right? What percentage of those actually take it upon themselves to train and or take classes? I would say it's a very small percentage, but that's what I'm
I
trying to do on
agree.
my channel is to encourage people organically. I don't believe it's the government's place to tell you what you should do and what you shouldn't do. I'm a libertarian in that mindset, but you should, like I'm telling you, you should if you have a gun, train with it and go take classes with it. And also dry fire and on the range, because I think any good class is going to leave you with homework. And that's kind of what I want to go into next is let's talk a little bit about your in particular your dry fire regimen. Like if you could recommend for me, this is me being selfish here, I want to know for myself, what do you recommend I do for dry fire for pistol? I don't see much about rifle dry fire out there on the internet. It might be out there, but I haven't seen it. Is there a particular drill for like if you had to give me one dry fire pistol drill and one dry fire rifle drill? You can give me more obviously, but and then we'll go from that into live fire drills, which I think is also important.
Yeah, so I started doing a what I call a TD. Is the drill of the day, and it's basically just a dry fire presentation or a dry fire drill. And I started it out very, very basic, so that the ordinary person that just bought a gun but not really quite sure what to do with it, we work on just bringing the gun up and presenting the gun. And then we worked on bringing the gun up and making sure the gun's empty, obviously. So magazine out, rack it a couple of times, make sure it's empty, and just working on trigger presses. And then I went as far as to tell people, hey, you can fold up a little piece of paper and put it inside the ejection port. And you'll pull a slide back, put it in, let it go forward. That way you can get a full press but no click. So I can press the trigger, but it doesn't have to cycle the slide and all that stuff, go through the manipulation of and the whole slide operation procedure. And then it built up on magazine changes, both tactical, if you want magazine out, magazine in, and then combat, mag out, mag in, right? So went through all that process.
Is there a place you have this all documented? Do you have your own YouTube channel or is this all on your Instagram? Like, is there a playlist we can watch to kind of get this information?
Yeah, so on my Instagram, again, Ransom Tactical Solutions LLC is on my IG. I got to type in the whole thing. And then if you go to YouTube, YouTube is Orion Training Group. You go to YouTube, there's a whole list of videos. We do a lot of drop our videos. We do a lot of presentations. If there's one thing you ask, what's one drill that I would recommend for somebody with a handgun? What I would recommend people really start to get back to the basics is going over just a presentation process, getting the gun out of the holster, whether it be concealed from the appendix or from the holster on the hip, is just go through presentations and getting the gun up to eye level, whether it be focusing downrange on the threat to bring the dot up to eye level, or focusing on the front sight post if you're still running irons. I think going back to the basics of that presentation just really speeds up and builds the grip and all that kind of good things, and then you start to add layers to that. I think the same thing happens with a rifle is what I would do. So what I do with the pistol is just that process. I'll always start my warm up with just some pistol presentations, and then I'll go through. I have a book right here that has all my dry fire stuff wrote down, the things that I have done and the things that I want to do. So it's like a to-do list, because everybody works better with lists. And then the same thing happens with a rifle. So if I wanted to work on, again, presentations, I would start at high port position, and then low port position, and then a scanning presentation. One of the best dry fire tools that I've seen thus far is the Mantis system. And I get no money back from that. But the Mantis is a magazine that emits a little laser, and they let you get trigger presses with your rifle. Amazing tool. Put that thing in and pick up some pieces of paper and start working on that presentation process. On top of that, specifically for you, I'm talking to you, is get you some chairs or some cones and set them up in your garage. And I want you to continue entry process of going through those chairs or through those cones from a flow, a button hook, and a step center, because it's been so long since you've done a CQB class. I bet when you come to us in November, which I hope you do, because we've been back in Dilley for 4 days, you'll have repeated those dry fire presentations or dry fire drills around those cones. And I just call it a figure eight drill, and it's on the Instagram as well. But it's just working yourself through those cones and the manipulation through your body with the rifle, any kind of position you want to do it. And it just becomes that much more familiar to you, because I can probably put you on a clock right now and say, give me a presentation from the holster and a pair, and you could probably do it in less than a second. Awesome. But if I ask you, hey, I want you to do a center check on this door and go through this modified door, you probably would have a couple of hiccups, because I know it's probably been a little while for you.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's really important for people to understand when you're talking about presentation of the rifle, high port, low port. This is something I never trained before your course. Is you mean 100? Like high port is up in the air, because when you're working CQB, you're working with guys in front and behind you. So it's not a high ready. It's not a low ready where you're aiming at the foot of the target, right? It's a completely all the way down or all the way up. And that's the way you would recommend people train, right? Because if you could do all the way up and present that way, it's going to be even that much easier from a high ready if you're on your own, for instance, right? So I
Yep.
want to just clarify that one point there. But you're absolutely right. It's been a long time, and if I'm being honest, outside of like 1 or 2 range days where I worked a little bit of where we had a door at our local range out here, I worked some entries. I haven't done it really since, and so I'm definitely going to be rusty. Um,
Yeah.
but
So
I
that
like that you
high
have a
port, like,
book.
yeah, that a high port, remember, it's not up here because I don't want my hand in front of my face. Because right now, the optic is pretty even with my eye, and the buttstock is kind of about my mid level. So I want to be able to drop that down a little bit so I can see over the top of my hand. That way, if I need to, I can present that gun up from a high port position. So remember, high port is 90 degrees up. This is not 90 degrees up because you're a little bit taller than me. If I'm behind you in the stack, that's probably going to make you feel a little uncomfortable. So look at the angle on that, right? We don't
Yeah.
want that at the back of that handsome grape. So again, 90 degrees up. And the same thing
Okay.
happens when it's at low port. So it's again 90 degrees down. So I need to present that gun up. So it brings the optic up to my eye level. And that's the things that I work through as part of my dry fire practice so I can remember to stay crispy. Because when you come to that class in November, which again, I hope you do, I actually put you on the clock and I test you to see we're looking for point 0.5 from a scanning position, 1 round on target. So from a scanning position, up, look, and press, or we're looking from a low port position, 1 second to bring the gun up, find the optic and press. And we're also looking from a high port position to find the optic and press. So I put you on the clock to see if you've been practicing. If not, you get a good idea of what that looks like and where you're at on the clock in relation to having a good speedy presentation. Now people go, well, what point is it to have a speedy presentation? Well, if me and you are doing something kind of spicy and you go into the right and my job is to go into the left, opposite direction of the man in front of me, and my presentation is slow, whose back is more exposed?
Mine.
Yours.
Yeah.
So if I'm poo shiesty on my delivery or my presentation, who's affected by it?
Yeah. It's my life. Exactly.
There you go.
And that's when you're working in CQB. Obviously, I work to train, and I think everyone should try to find a group of guys to train with. If things were ever get spicy, right? Pray to God it doesn't, but it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. So it's better to have these skills, but also appreciate you mentioning par times and like, what are the par times for these said drills? And like, there's obviously like Jedi level. There's like what's the acceptable, then there's Jedi level, but there's gonna be all in between depending on the day, your fatigue, how long you've been training, so on and so forth. But it is nice to know for me, particularly when I go to the range and I'm working on the fundamentals, the basics, because obviously you need a good foundation before you start introducing movements, all kinds of high level processing that you're gonna have to do when you do a center check, right? You're scanning, if you do a center check into a button hook, you're scanning 90% of the room, as I learned in that class, right? So there's
Yep.
a lot of information you're absorbing during that center check, and if you're doing dynamic entry, you know it's got to be fast. Otherwise, you're just going to pause in the doorway and you're in the cone of death, right?
Right.
So it's it's
And part of
important.
that in your dry fire is if you set those cameras up right, you're looking at those cones and it represents a doorway, or if you're using an actual door out on the range, you can set your camera up left or right, lateral limit. That way, when you do present, if you're doing that center check and you notice in part of your presentation your muzzle is past the door frame, was that an effective center check? Because if I'm telegraphing my muzzle past the door frame, that leaves exposure on the left and right corners, deep corner left and right, that now the bad guy has a perspective of, oh, look, there he is, and now can make a decision. But if I do my center check out and away from the doorway and I don't present my muzzle past the door frame, I'm not giving any stimulus into that room until I make my decision to go left or right based on your calculations. So again, that's one of the things that we get holding ourselves accountable, whether it be a par time or not over penetrating the doorway and putting our muzzle past that door frame. A lot of people like to have the gun in their shoulder when they're doing CQB because they don't want to break the gun down. But they must understand that when that happens and they go to step in through the doorway, that muzzle is going to be presented to the corner for a split second before your eyes can see that deep corner, and then you're able to make a decision, which I'm sure you've learned in that Force on Force class.
Yeah, you
Just
learn real
that,
quick.
that exactly. So again,
Yeah, and
it's
I want to.
having the wherewithal. Go
Yeah, I
ahead,
was
homie.
going to also say, people like you were mentioning live fire, shooting real guns. What's cool about that course is you are still shooting your real gun. It's just sims, obviously, but you get to test your actual setup. And at the time, I was running this 1 to 8 attacker without the top dot, and it presented a lot of challenges. when we started running CQB. I was also running a 14.5 without a can, so it kind of equates to what I'm running currently, which is a 12.5 with a suppressor. But I
Hmm.
was told that you need a blue can in order to use those sims, otherwise they could get caught up in your real can. From what I can remember, a lot of those guys were running
Yeah,
blue training cans.
yeah,
But
yeah.
without getting too far in the weeds, because I got
Yeah, sorry.
ADHD madhouse. No,
Hey,
no,
bro.
this is me because I was about to start talking about rifle setups, and that's not what this is about. Let's go back to the live fire drills. So let's say I'm at the
Hmm.
range because I struggle with this all the time. I want to when I'm reviewing guns because that's my job as a gun reviewer. Right? I'm reviewing products, but I want to actually train because ammo ain't cheap, and I don't have an ammo sponsor. So I got to actually get my training in while I'm reviewing. What would you say is like for a rifle? Let's start with for a rifle because there's a ton of information I think on pistol drills out there and different types of drills you can do for pistols. There's books, endless books out there, but for me, it's a little more convoluted with the rifle topic. And obviously, your specialty is CQB, but you can apply these to anything, right? The high port, the low port. What would you say is like a good range day of training for a rifle that would prepare me for a class like yours?
Um, so I would allot maybe 2 box ammo, so that's 40 rounds. And think about applying those rounds, and you can write your own course of fire before you even go to the range. That's just part of that dry fire homework. So you can figure out drills that you want to isolate. All right, cool. I'm going to do a controlled pair from high port or scanning position. I'm going to do a controlled pair or one. If you run a little low on ammo, you can do one. But I'm going to get a presentation from a scanning position. I'm going to get a presentation from high port. I'm going to get a presentation from low port, whatever amount of rounds you want to. What you also could do is start documenting the time that you're able to do those. So on the buzzer, I'm going to do this drill and write it down in your little homework book. The reason I would write it down if I were you, because when I got a new platform and a new rifle, I can then go back to, okay, I was quicker with this weapon system and I was more accurate and whatever than I was with this particular weapon system. And now you can start to narrow down like, cool, I think I might want to look at this as my next platform that you want to start investing in because now you're getting raw data on which system is faster for you to be able to do those things. And then we're going to get, like a controlled pair or, two to the body, one to the face, or, do a bill drill with this rifle and then record that time. That way, when you get the next one, you can go through that same format, the same 40 rounds, and just apply the new gun to it and go, oh, sick, man, I was a lot faster on my bill drill with this, whatever new platform rifle that people give you to play with. And then now you can look at raw data and go, man, numbers don't lie, right? Numbers
Yeah.
don't lie. And then you could do, some target engagement on multiple targets. So, two to body on one target, shift right, two to body on that target, and then go from right to left. And then you could do what I call a box drill, is just like two, one to the head, one to the head. So you're just doing a box. You can also do some shooting and moving, like control pairs while moving forward. You can do some lateral movement, left and right. One of the another cone drill that I like to set out 4 cones, and you'll shoot 5 rounds while moving forward on one target, and then you're going to transition. Uh, there's 5 targets in front of you. 5 targets in front of you. It takes 28 rounds. Okay, you're going to walk, and you can dumb this down to 3 or 2 or whatever you want to do to consolidate or conserve. But we're running a course. You'll do this drill in our 4-day program, but you'll shoot 5 rounds on the target in front of you. So now we're working on shooting and moving,
Hmm.
and then we're going to go to the target to our left lateral limit. We're going to shoot 3, 3, and 3. So what I'm working on is transitioning across the body. It's be easy to shoot these in a line. That's easy. But we're working on while you're moving this way, the target's moving this way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it's like
Yep.
throwing if you're an NFL
Okay.
quarterback throwing across your body, essentially.
That's it. Because now you're moving across your body with the rifle platform, and then you get to the start point on the left side, and you do the same thing. 5 on the target in front of you, and then you transition to the right side target, and you shoot 3, 3, 3 as you move across. So what we're learning is to orient our lower body or our hips to the target and keep the gun and not walk backwards when we're trying to shoot in CQB, right? So we're trying to articulate the rifle and the weapon system over, and you're getting a lot of the panning down that you would typically do at a threshold. You're like, it makes sense now. If I put my feet this way and I walk this way, it's so much easier. That's just part of that dry fire stuff. You can do that same thing dry in your house, and you're like, oh, sick, I can keep this gun oriented on that IPSC target or that whatever piece of cardboard paper on the other side of the garage, and it stay kind of within an acceptable margin. So those are all drills that I would start to incorporate, and then you go into like transition drills. So one with the a rifle, transition, one with a pistol. And that just, again, building that muscle memory of, hey, the rifle is down. Let me get this pistol up and start to work that problem. And then once that rifle's down, you can then work in reload drills to, magazine out, magazine in, bolt forward, and then establish your support hand grip. So all that can be done in dry fire. You don't have to fire a single shot. And I know a lot of professional pistol shooters and people that don't have the money to go out and just blaze away. They spend a lot of time dry fire.
Yeah, no, I think dry fire is super understated to people who are newer to it, right? I never really understood the importance of dry fire and how much it can improve your skill set without ever firing around, especially during COVID when things were super expensive. I was doing a lot of low round count drills and I was doing a lot of dry fire. Even to this day, if I don't have time to dry fire during the day, which I know there's no excuse, but I got a little one, as you know. But
Yep.
even before I leave the house, I still will draw and present. It drives my wife crazy, but I'll draw and present 5 to 10 times just to kind of knock the little dust off that I have because I'm leaving the house with my weapon. And what kind of responsible person would I be if I'm carrying this thing and I'm not brushed up on it? So that's really important. One thing I do want to ask you, because that was a ton of really good information. What yardages are you for different drills? Like, is there a average yardage you would recommend we do these rifle drills at? Like, is 10 yards a
For
good?
me, yeah, for me specifically, man, I'm probably not going past 10 yards, dude. I'm not going past 10 yards. I know the rifle is made to shoot. Get it? I've shot, and I'm probably going to date myself, but in the Marine Corps, we didn't have optics. It was iron sights from all the way up to 500. But I'm not. Hell, I'm old, dude. I can't even see if the dude's got a gun at that distance, right? I can't see that no more. I'm gonna have to have some kind of magnifier or put a magnifier on my Glock so I can see what the hell's going on past 50. So
Yeah,
EOTech, you put that thing in front of my
yeah.
red dot. But let's be realistic, man. Um, would you be able to positively identify uh, at 50 yards with a weapons mounted light on your pistol if it's a cell phone, a flashlight, or a pistol?
No, I mean, I wouldn't be
Okay,
able to. No, I agree.
me either. Me either. I can't. So that's why I like to work in like 10 and in, because if you think about the biggest room inside of your residence, the biggest room from lane to lane is probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 to 15 yards. If we've got our back against the wall, maybe shooting down a hallway, it might be 12 to 15 yards. Wouldn't it be really awesome if you could make a surgical precision shot with that rifle that you have in your hand, if necessary, to somebody coming into your residence to do you or your family harm? Wouldn't it
Yeah,
be really
it would
nice
be
if you
nice.
could make a well aimed precision shot with your handgun at that distance, 12 to 15 yards, if someone's life depended upon it? So that's why I say 10 and in, man. Work the piss out of everything you can do 10 and in, because that's where it's going to be imminent. I'm not
Hmm.
going to be shooting at people across my yard. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Hell,
no,
you
I
can't.
agree.
In Texas, you could probably get away with that. Down here, you can't shoot people over property. So if they're breaking in my car trying to steal my shit, I'm like, oh man, I wish I'd have been in there. I might have had a different response. But you can't shoot somebody over your car, stealing your belongings,
Yeah,
stealing your vehicle. Not Louisiana,
yeah.
dog.
And I mean, I don't advocate for that either. If it can be replaced, let them take it. And
That's it.
you
Let
don't
it
want
go.
that. You don't want those problems, anyways. But where
No.
where I get where I get a little bit of where I differentiate, I guess you could say, is I'm setting up a lot of my stuff for the 2A purpose, I guess you could say, right? Like fighting tyranny, foreign or domestic. So that's why, like, you see me with a 1 to 8 on a 12-5. It might seem ridiculous to a lot of people, but if it's like, hey, if I'm going to be in a war, I'd rather have the magnification if I'm going to be engaging targets out the distance. But this is
Yeah.
where, as a civilian, I struggle. I have this imposter syndrome. Like, man, am I doing this all wrong? Because when there's rule of law, when there's still government in place, and we're not fighting a war on American soil or anywhere for that matter. Yeah, most likely you're going to be within 10 to 15 yards for a self-defense situation. And
Yeah.
that's like where 80 or 90%, I mean, really for now, 100% of the likelihood of you ever needing to use one of these is going to be. But I still like to set my
Exactly.
stuff up if I can still effectively, like, I want to start moving towards training with just one gun so I get to know it intimately, right? Because right now I
Yep.
spread my rounds and my time across so many different platforms because it's the nature of YouTube. I use this channel as an excuse, right? But it's fun. Don't get me wrong, but I want to become a more proficient shooter with whatever I'm going to be grabbing if shit ever hit the fan or if someone ever knocked my door down. I'm going to grab one. You're not going to be dual wielding like Rambo, right? You can't use two. So whichever one that is where I would encourage people to just kind of focus your time and your energy. But with that being said, I noticed your rifle is very slick. You have a very small, I think it's the lead and steel PB
PB3,
pistol
yeah,
optic on a little
yep,
riser there. And I
yep,
think I
yep.
think I know why, but you want to just tell us a little bit about why? Because I don't want to, again, what you train for and what you're training guys for, especially sheriffs, deputies, police, law enforcement, they're entering structures all the time. This is the situation that's most likely to happen. I'll admit that. I'll be the first one to say, I pray to God again, I never have to use this in a wartime scenario, but that's what I'm kind of setting this up for a war fighting rifle, I guess you could say, or a recce rifle or
Roger
whatever,
that.
right? Shit hit the
Yep.
fan. And in that situation, most likely you're going to die, even the most badass dudes. It's like we got no chance in hell, but you might as well try to train for that. But let's talk a little bit about your rifle setup and why you set it up the way you did.
Now let me be clear with you, brother man. I do have a rifle that I can grab at a moment's notice to reach out and touch some people at a very long distance. That is like you said, a purpose-built rifle for a different purpose. So I have that capability, but for me, my one and done is going to be this LWRC 12-7. It has a raid on it for laser and IR and NVG work because we teach NVG stuff. It has the PB3. That is their pistol optic, and it's on a castle mount riser. And again, I use that for NVG and also for while wearing a gas mask. Hey, technical difficulties will appear at a moment's notice. You and I got the worst luck on doing videos, bro.
I know we're cursed when both of us are on screen together. We're cursed. But you were talking about running the 1.93 castle mount with the PB3 for passive aiming, but also for use with the gas mask. And obviously, when we're training force and force, you're wearing like a paintball mask, so you don't get simmed
Yes,
up in the face. So
yes.
that presented some unique challenges with my Badger 1.3 because this is the exact optic I had the attacker 1-8. I had it on my 14.5 as we mentioned already, but again, that's a whole other topic for another video. I think talking about rifle setups and building a purpose-driven rifle versus having a one kind of general purpose rifle. And again, the general purpose rifle has a lot more applicability in a without rule of law rather, or shit hit the fan situation versus what you're doing. You're training real guys who are entering structures. Whether it be law enforcement or church security or school security, whoever it is. This is a very different situation, and it's honestly the most likely situation. I'm not going to sit here and blow smoke and say, hey, the U.S. is going to fall. Obviously, pray to God it never happens, but I guess that's where I gear a lot of my rifles towards that kind of situation. And if I'm going to train with one, it'd be an interesting thought experiment for me, right? I'm open minded. People look at me like a pushover, say I'm very like I'm a sycophant. I'm disagreeing with what everybody says, but I'm an open minded person, right? So I love to have my ideas challenged. This is my idea right now, and if I can effectively use this and meet those par times, then why not? But obviously, it's a big, heavy optic for 12.5. It's loaded down with a bunch of stuff on here. But again, I think that's another topic for another day, probably.
Yeah, I'm of the mindset, bro. If it works for you because you're going to be the one using it, deploying with it, then run what you brung, dude. Get after it. Don't let some outside influence tell you what they used to use or what they should use or what they're using currently. That works for them. That's great, awesome. But whatever's going to work for you and you're most likely to grab in the event of an emergency, be familiar with that particular platform because that, like you said, that is your go-to gun. That's the one you're going to grab when you need it the most. So just get good with it, whatever it is. And for anybody watching this, get something that you're like. People say, "Well, which gun should I carry concealed?" I'm like, the one you're most likely to have with you. You can go out and spend all kind of money on any kind of guns, but if you don't carry it with you and you're not proficient with it and you can't be responsible, then don't even bother carrying it. Just leave it
Yeah,
at home. But if you whatever gun you're going to grab and put in your pants or your purse, let that be the one do all. That way you're more likely, hey, I'm confident with this pistol or whatever. I'm going to have it with me 90% of the time.
exactly.
And just be good with it. Don't let someone other the outside influence tell you what you should or should not do or should not train with. It's not their say so.
Yeah, and I mean, again, as a reviewer, the challenge I have is people are making purchasing decisions. They have fixed budgets, right? Like this guy who's working blue collar job might be able to make one $1,200 purchase a year, let's say. So if someone recommends a shitty product, that's going to set them back pretty substantially. It may even cause burnout and get people to feel overwhelmed or like, man, this is fucking worthless. I'm wasting all my time on this stuff. And I've definitely felt that way in the past, and I feel that way sometimes even today. So that's why I feel a responsibility to those people who are watching me and taking my reviews seriously and making decisions off of that, because everybody's got a fixed income. And if you have a family and a mortgage, this is all very common sense. But if you're thinking about upgrading from a aim point or a EOTech to LPVO because I'm recommending it, I want to be very clear. Like I'm talking about a one rifle to do everything end of time situation, which is highly unlikely. I mean, like it's fun to think about, it's fun to fantasize, right? That you're going to be running and gunning with the boys, but that is the least likely scenario for you to use a firearm. So maybe I need to adjust my mindset on it too. But again, if I can do it, why not? And that's what I'm going to
Yeah.
be. I'm going to start training with this rifle in particular and this optic setup to discover that. And maybe I can do a video even comparing, a red dot with a magnifier versus an LPVO and an ACOG. And I've shot them all separately, but I've never done a dedicated video to really talk about it and prove to myself more than anybody else, because you are the only person that matters, right? If you can shoot, like you said, if you're proficient with it, if you can handle it and shoot with it and you can ruck around with it for a couple miles, then who's to say you shouldn't do it? So
Right. There you go.
but dude, I think this has been awesome. I mean, is there obviously let's hear about ways people can find you and take your classes. You've already kind of alluded to it, but if people want to find you and train with you, how do they do it?
Yeah, man, you can check us. You can check me out specifically. I got a lot of information on my Instagram channel, my Instagram page. That's Ransom Tactical Solutions, LLC. If you DM anything, I'll respond to everything. I'm also on Facebook, the big channel on YouTube, and also on Instagram is Orion Training Group. You let your fingers do the walking on YouTube, and you'll see probably 60 to 70 something videos, all free educational content. We do classes all over the U.S. We've got people in the East Coast, South. We've got some cats up in Washington now. Hell, I'm going a week after next, first week of April. I'll be in Kansas doing that 4-day class at an indoor range at Radian. The people that make the charging handles, Radian, they got a range over
Yeah.
there. So I'll be over there in April, the first week of April, doing that 4-day class. The big one that we've got, it usually sells out pretty quickly, is down there in Dilley. That's going to be in November. That's a 4-day pool. Yeah, man, Orion Training Group on YouTube, Orion Training Group on Instagram, Ransom Tactical Solutions. Man, we try to answer everything. The newsletter at their website, Orion Training Group LLC, is their website that has all the classes listed, all of the instructor cadre information. If you send in any kind of request or question, me or Jared or somebody's going to answer that stuff for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can attest to this, guys. The reason I loved your class too is although you guys are really high level shooters, very approachable, answer all the questions. You make sure all your students understand whatever it is before you move on, which was super helpful to me and a lot of other guys in the class. So I can't recommend y'all enough. Again, I am definitely intending to attend that course in Dilley. I want to be there. So if you guys have a spot for me, I'd love to be there and we can cover it and provide a full review on the channel for people so that if they
That'd
want
be
to
sick.
do it in the future. Yeah, you don't need to wait for the review. Sign up now if you're interested in that. But dude, no, I really appreciate your inputs coming on the channel. We definitely need to do another video talking about specifically rifle setups and because you have a lot of real world experience, even though you're shooting irons at 500 yards. I'll believe that when I see it. And I keep hearing Marines talk about, man, my irons, dude. I mean, how big is this target? We talking about a barn? What are we talking about? We talking about Lizzo? Who we shooting at 500
Yeah,
yards?
yeah.
Because I have trouble shooting with an 8X, and I'm not I'm not claiming to be something I'm not, but it's I always hear that, man. Like, oh, because I talk shit about the ACOG and I talk crap about how I'm a magnification whore. I like to have the top end as the top end because for PID and whatnot, if you're shooting somebody at 300 yards, how do you know if they're really a threat, right? And there's a lot of friendly fire we see happening overseas right now in Ukraine, especially. There's been a lot of documented cases of friendly fire, and again, we're talking about a wartime situation, but I get a lot of people talking about, man, Marines, a 19-year-old Marine is going to be hitting 500 yards with a ACOG or irons, and I'm like, I'll believe it when I see it, bro. But
Uh, I'm telling you, bro. I got the paperwork that says, expert, fourth award or
yeah,
whatever. That's 4 years. expert qualifications. That was an old time,
They don't.
back
Well,
when I can.
they don't talk about how many mags it took before you started hitting the target, though, right?
Well, I mean, it took a few.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
No, it's
But
all good, homie.
I appreciate it, man. I'm really looking forward to doing more of these in the future. Thanks for coming on. And yeah, guys, go check them out. Go follow Ryan Training Group. Follow Jason as well. Awesome resources. I'm going to take what you just told me, and I'm going to go to the range today, hopefully, and actually start to put these drills into practice. Yeah, maybe you can send a couple screenshots of that book there, man. That's like the book from Waterboy, right? The playbook. I need to get me one of them. Can I just copy your homework? Yeah. What the heck's going on? Do I have to? Can you publish that? I'm not even kidding. Like that would be an excellent resource just to see. I don't want
Okay.
to see the doodles you got in there, but I think
Hmm.
a lot of
Me.
people, hey, look, I mean, there's guys, obviously, USPSA world class shooter like Ben Stoger. He has a whole book, right? But it'd
Yeah.
be cool if you publish that, whether behind a paywall or not. I think it'd be worth whatever. I think it'd be worth fucking $50, even if you sold it for $20. Just say, hey, here, this is my memoirs, right? And this is stuff. I
Yeah.
mean, how long have you had that thing? How long have you been working on that?
It's got some time to it. And would you be interested in maybe a CQB manual of sorts, maybe?
I would definitely, yeah. I mean, I for sure would be interested in that. Do you have that?
Um,
Is it in the works?
uh, it could be in the works, man. It could be in the works.
Okay, nice. Yeah, well, let me know. I
Yeah.
would love to have you back on whenever that's available and point people in that direction
Hell
and
yeah.
actually just put it into practice. That's really what I need
That's
to
what it's
start
about,
doing
bro.
is put my money where my mouth is and putting the rounds down range. So, anyways, appreciate you as always, man. I'm looking forward to doing more of these.
If anyone wants to support Range Day Bro,
Yeah, rangedaybro.com. You can find all of our loadouts, our discounts over there. Follow me on Rumble, follow me on X, all that good stuff. You guys know how to do it. Appreciate you, brother. Take care. Talk to you soon.
pleasure, homie.